Hey there folks, so welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So we're now at the halfway point of the Billboard year, and wow, 2017 has been something, that's for damn sure. I'm still not quite sure how to evaluate the year as a whole, but one thing's for sure is that it's been turbulent thus far. Ed Sheeran might have held on to the number one for a measurable time, but ever since then it's been song after song seizing that number one, showing the sort of turnover you normally expect more on the UK charts than the United States. Of course, this sort of turnover I view as a plus as a whole. It's not bad to encourage a healthy spirit of competition on the Hot 100, and of the past 5 unique songs to hold the number one, this new one might have the most historical weight. Despacito by Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and remixed and featuring Justin Bieber. Now this is the first Spanish language song to top the chart since the Macarena in the 90s. The first number one in the States for both main artists, and Daddy Yankee's been around for a while, hell Luis Fonsi has too. And what's all the more impressive is that it got here mostly organically. Sure, of course radio is taking its time to catch up as it steadily picks up momentum. Kind of expect that for a Spanish language song on English radio, but you can't deny the huge sales in the streaming, although when you break down the streaming data, it's not entirely dominant. We'll come back to this, but in the meantime, Bruno Mars's That's What I Like holds on to number 2, pretty much entirely thanks to airplay, which peaked this week. And while it might have better US YouTube, its sales are weaker and streaming is slipping. This takes us to I'm the One by DJ Khaled featuring Justin Bieber, Chance the Rapper, Quavo, and Lil Wayne, shoved off the number one even as it rockets up the radio with media sales and good streaming. Just not enough at this point to move past number 3. I do see this maybe retaking number 1 at some point though. Then, for some reason, we have Shape of You by Ed Sheeran actually rising a spot to number 4, but that's more because of weaknesses below it, because airplay's in free fall, and even good weeks on streaming and YouTube will not save this for long. Then we have Humble by Kendrick Lamar down to number 5. Now this I chalk more up to radio gains not quite being as quick as they could be, because it is still dominant on-demand streaming and it has good sales, even if YouTube isn't what it once was. Where that's not the case is Mask Off by Future, where the video is giving the song a lot more longevity than I expected, even as sales are weak and radio is still hesitating to get on board. So it's up to number 6 over Something Just Like This by the Chainsmokers and Coldplay, which despite radio traction that will not die in contrast, its sales are slipping and streaming has never been strong, so it's stuck at number 7. Then we have the streaming and YouTube propping up EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi Vert. Again, it's only here for those reasons, and it only gained a slot to number 8 thanks to weaknesses below it. I still want this to go away. Now this takes us to a return to the top 10 for Stay by Alessia Cara and Zed at number 9. But I don't expect it to stick around in the top 10 because sales and streaming are a little bit weaker, especially compared to any sort of real radio momentum. Now finally, to round things out, clinging on to number 10 is I Spy by Kyle featuring Lil Yachty. It's really losing in all categories. I don't expect this to stick around in the top 10 much longer, but hey, it had a good run. It's a good song. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. And while I could call attention to Party by Chris Brown, Gucci Mane, and Usher coming to an end, although I don't really want to, along with Selfish by Future and Rihanna, and finally Call on Me by Starlight, the biggest news here comes to Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake finally leaving the Hot 100 after a full year on the charts. Now you might not love the song, but that's impressive longevity all the same. The rest of our losers, however, are a little bit less impressive, so let's start off with the ones that are on their way out naturally. Paris by the Chainsmokers is down hard to 37, Chained to the Rhythm by Katy Perry and Skip Marley continues down hard to 87, Down by Marion Hill hits 100, and after a very respectable run, I Feel It Coming by The Weeknd featuring Daft Punk hits 44. Then we have the next 2 country songs that are fading out naturally. Any Old Barstool by Jason Aldean down to 82, and Hometown Girl by Josh Turner dropping to 72. I'm actually a little bit more surprised it got that high at all. Then we get the scourge of boring white rappers taking justified hits, with Good Life from G-Eazy and Kalani going to 73, and At My Best by Machine Gun Kelly and Haley Steinfeld sliding down to 78, which is not a good sign in the latter case for that album that just dropped. And finally, we've got the singles that really should be doing better, but aren't, like Shining by DJ Khaled, Beyonce, and Jay-Z going to 85, and Thunder by Imagine Dragons off its debut down to 92. Honestly, I expect a little bit more from both acts. I'm surprised they aren't doing better. But where we got a lot more came in our gains, and especially our returning entries. So let's start off with the latter. In particular, it was a good week for Migos, as their song with Gucci Mane's Slippery came back to 56, primarily off the video, and they even brought back that Lil Yachty collaboration Peekaboo back to 99. Beyond that, we also had the returns for Everybody by Logic to 71, back thanks to the album, and I still do like the song, I don't mind that it's here. Guile Chester by Drake up to 98, I have no idea who cares about this, and Moves by Big Sean to 95, which is roughly passable and stuck around a lot longer than I would expect. The big story comes in the return of Galway Girl by Ed Sheeran, and it's telling to see if Ed Sheeran will manage to get this up the Hot 100. Outside of certain demographics that like this kind of folk, like myself, it can be a tricky crossover stateside, so I'll be very interested to see if this push does well. But where things get more complicated come in our gains, and there were a fair few of them. For one, a lot of new arrivals got legs and traction, and it's a shame that the majority of them suck. As Magnolia by Playboi Carti went up to 63, his collab with Lil Uzi Vert, Woke Up Like This went up to 80, and the nauseating Privacy from Chris Brown went up to 77. At least Slow Hands by Niall Horan picked up a fair bit to 52, but it's also following up with 1-800-273-8255 from Logic, Alessia Cara, and Khalid up to 47, which isn't a great song, but I prefer it to Chris Brown. Then we have our returning entries gaining some traction. On the one hand, we got Flatliner by Cole Swindle and Dierks Bentley not being any good, but on the other hand, we got Human by Ragged Bowman. Could be worse. Well, provably so, as Craving You by Thomas Rhett and Maris Morris got a sudden boost up to 70, probably off the video, and Attention by Charlie Puth also picked up to 53. Thankfully, the highest charting gains are also the best of them. Unforgettable by French Montana and Sway Lee up to 29. Yeah, I'm still a little bit surprised that I like this song as much as anybody, but yeah, it is a good track. And Sign of the Times by Harry Styles making up big to 18 off the video. Expect a surge for this next week thanks to the album, but again, I'd be curious to see how many songs from that record managed to break through onto the charts, especially given how little they would fit in what's considered mainstream radio these days. It'll be fascinating to hear, but all this disguises the fact that we only have 4 new arrivals this week, and they're all some variant of country song. But before half of my audience, or let's be honest, about 80% of my audience clears out here, I figured I'd call out a world hit. Only to discover that Despacito is absolutely ruling the European charts right now. So okay, here's a song that's had some success in the UK and Canada, and I'm bewildered that it hasn't crossed over yet. It's really quite good.
I just wanna be part of your symphony. We hold me tight and not let go. Symphony. Like a love song on the radio. We hold me tight and not let go.
Well, okay, on some level I'm not that surprised. Zara Larsson has struggled to cross over to the United States over a number of times, and you could argue that the best songs from her sophomore album So Good were already released as singles. But Symphony tends to feel a little bit more like a clean Bandit song anyways. The glittery keyboards, the rounded synth, an influx of strings to coast off them, and beats with a defined but gentle melodic groove. There is a lot of real melody to this track. Clean Bandit have a knack of making impressively refined and polished production, which for Zara Larsson's natural earnest charisma can be a pretty solid fit. But if I were to criticize anything, it'd be that the lyrics can feel a little flimsy. A set of musical metaphors to describe how in love our protagonist is, and really, that's about it. But hey, it's a simple song and it's well executed, and Zara Larsson is a good enough performer against this production to make it work. So yeah, I'll take this. So now on to the list proper, starting off with number 97, Drinkin' Problem by Midland.
So pull another bottle off the wall. People say I got a drinking problem, but I got no problem drinking it up. They keep on talking, drawing conclusions. They call it a problem, I call it a solution.
Okay, so one of the biggest regional country stories has been the steady revitalization and commercial success of the Texas country scene, which many would argue was sidelined or outright ignored by country radio and Nashville specifically throughout the whole bro country boom a couple years ago. But with country currently in a state of real flux and having no real clue what it's doing, there have been several acts out of Texas that have been making moves, and one that's been picking up a fair amount of buzz is a trio called Midland, who are being marketed as a rough-edge, neo-traditional act, trying to apply a more authentic side of country music. And note the use of the word marketed. Kyle Coronios over from Saving Country Music, and if you're not reading that site daily, you should be, he did a pretty stellar investigative piece into the band and found that this was a group signed by Big Machine, with production from Josh Osborne and Shane McAnally as co-writers, which is not a deal breaker for me, but also that a lot of the name dropping in their backstory really referred to a bunch of white flight neighborhoods given folksy names to deceive audiences who don't dig deeper in the backstory to discover that, say, their bassist Cameron Duddy was directing music videos for Bruno Mars, Jennifer Lopez, and Fifth Harmony, and that their frontman Mark Weistrack was on an NBC soap opera. Now again, none of this is on the surface a bad thing, but it struck me as unnecessary marketing when the music should be able to stand up for itself. And yeah, on some level it actually does. For one, this sounds like neo-traditional country in the best sense of the word. Pedal steel, organic production, good harmonies, a song about drinking with some reasonably well-structured lyrics that don't shy away from framing the whole scene as kinda miserable and lonely, even if it doesn't provide as much actual detail why this guy has a drinking problem in the first place. But if I were to pinpoint any real issue that bothers me, it would come in our frontman. Namely, I've heard more impressive singers at country karaoke that I go to every week, because his mushy delivery and weak harmonies don't convey a lot of charisma. As much as some sites have tried to claim it, this guy is no George Strait. But whatever, it's passable enough, and I'm willing to overlook the deception of the marketing for some good music here regardless. But when I can rattle off a good 10 to 15 other Texas acts who have slugged it out for years and are a fair bit better and yet not getting the whole Big Machine treatment, that can get kinda irritating. Just saying. Number 89, Either Way by Chris Stapleton.
Say the world will call it quits. Baby, you can go, you can stay, but I won't love you either way.
You know, it's funny. Maybe people could point to Chris Stapleton on some level and call out how much he's a country industry insider too. If you look through the songs he's written for other artists, it's not hard to see it. But if Midland are being over-marketed by Big Machine, Mercury Nashville seems to have no damn clue how to manage Chris Stapleton's career, and Either Way is the biggest example why. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a great song, one of the best off the album. Bare bones acoustic line, the intimacy and loneliness of the writing that highlight a relationship that's burned out for good, Chris Stapleton's commitment to how utterly miserable the situation is, strung out to the point where he doesn't give a damn if she leaves or stays, that love is not coming back. It's a harrowing song, and a daring choice for a lead-off single of all things. But yeah, that's the point. It's an album cut, really, and knowing the mainstream country market, it's a really stupid choice when you have the option of Broken Halos as a lead-off single instead. Whatever, the song is great, let's enjoy it while we can, because I would put money on this not really sticking around. And really, that's an indictment of country radio, and it's a damn shame. Number 79, Every Time I Hear That Song by Blake Shelton.
I still think about you. Every time I hear that song, it's like the first time it came on, and ooh, I still think about you. I still think about you.
Okay, so calling back to country karaoke, it can be a little bit discombobulating to hear that a song is only now crossing over to the Hot 100 that I've been hearing for months, such is the case for Every Time I Hear That Song, which came off the album Blake Shelton dropped a year ago, and one that I remember more for the main line on the hook than anything else all that distinct about the song. Well, that and the fake snapping beat that opens up against the ghostly mix before the actual country instrumentation clicks in. And from that point, outside the upper end of the acoustic guitars feeling a tad tad tinny at spots when you can even bother to hear them, this is an okay song, trying to capture the wistful memories when you hear that one song that calls back to your partner. Problem is that it's pretty pedestrian territory when it comes to country writing, and it's not like Blake Shelton provides that much detail to make it feel all that distinct or interesting or contributing to his personality at all. Again, if it wasn't for the hook, nobody would remember or care about this song. So yeah, let's keep it that way. And finally, number 64, Malibu by Miley Cyrus.
Next to you, the sky is more blue in Malibu. Next to you, in Malibu. Next to you.
Does anybody else remember 2013? That was the year when Miley Cyrus, fresh off a shedding of her Disney image with Can't Be Tamed a few years earlier, and failing as an actress, came back to pop in a big way with bangers. And while that album is a complete mess in terms of the weird fusion of styles, including the infusion of more hip-hop influences than was otherwise wise, it felt on some strange level kind of authentic in the way that other pop stars' flirtations with black music hadn't felt. That she was owning her weird, crazy persona, and the VMAs kind of backed that. And on the surface, her follow-up album, Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pet, should have confirmed this assumption, given how utterly unpleasant and not mainstream friendly that it was. Yes, the album was a borderline unlistenable, but it seemed to come from an authentic place, albeit a rather gross one. But if you all remember that review I did of the album, the focal point of my rage was that there were glimpses that it was all just more of an act than it seemed, and the incoherent screams for meaning might only rest on the surface. And thus, now that she's had her fun with psychedelic rock and hip-hop and dismissed them entirely, she's decided that she wants to make rootsier music that takes her closer to acoustic or country roots. Except not like Ed Sheeran or John Mayer, she's not that granola, to quote her. But I hate to say it, Miley, after listening to Malibu, I can say you are absolutely that basic, because this is the sort of utterly tepid acoustic music that is a terrible fit for her voice and energy. For one, who thought that weedy electric guitar line was a good idea? It's a decent melody, sure, but you keep expecting it to actually have smolder or muscle, but it's so sloppily blended with the bass guitar and the kick drum, it feels more like a slapdash demo than anything else, only picking up real quality thanks to the acoustic strums on the second hook. What's more galling is how bland the lyrics are. I get it, you got back together with Liam Hemsworth, but there's nothing here that shows anything beyond placid, mellow contentment, which when you pair with a raspy voice that's a far better fit for belting like hers is jarring. It's a terrible fit. But I don't like the song more for what it represents, a backslide for her in artistic growth. Because if you take one of the more interesting personalities in mainstream music and you have her make this, what a goddamn waste. This sucks. So if you can't tell, Malibu is easily the worst of the week from Miley Cyrus. You are capable of so much better, with the best easily going to Chris Stapleton's either way. And with our luck, it'll end up gone next week while Malibu will end up sticking around. We'll see what happens. Till then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.